Recently, a prospective client approaching retirement and reviewing with us the game plan we had prepared for them paused to ask a very serious question regarding their upcoming transition from working for a paycheck to soon relying on us to send them money each month to replace it, as they asked the following. Tony, I know you are a strong Christian, so I want your opinion on whether we should continue to tithe in retirement, and if so, how do we calculate the amount of the tithe since we will no longer be receiving a paycheck? It's a very good question, but one, quite frankly, I feel can easily lead Christians into something I refer to as the guilt trip gospel, a horrible condition whereby well-meaning Christians are robbed of the joy of giving based on a certain percentage that is difficult at best to calculate, especially in retirement. This feeling of guilt for possibly not giving to a standard that is difficult to adhere to sometimes can be brought on by the very religious leaders who demand believers give to the Lord, not out of the joy that comes from giving, but out of fear if they don't. The result, sometimes the person receiving the gifts benefits the most. So just for a moment, let's forget what you might believe in terms of a certain percent you should give and look to what Jesus says on the matter, where in Matthew 5:42 he says, "Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from he who asks to borrow from you." Notice, he doesn't say to give a percent of what they ask for, but rather simply give what they're asking. Now that, my friend, requires a leap of faith. But he's not done, where just a few verses later, Jesus says the following in Matthew 6:3, "Give as if your left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing." Translation, do not focus on a certain predetermined percent to give, but rather be led by God's Spirit to give as you are called to give. Now, why? Well, we got to go to verse 4, because as you and I give in secret, our Father will repay us as he sees fit. So, Christian, what you are seeing in these verses is faith on display and the challenge of trusting God with giving in a way you may have never considered before. And assuming you believe that Jesus really did leave you and I with a helper to guide us along the way, we now have the liberty, as witnessed by Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, to give not under compulsion, but rather give cheerfully as we feel led to give. This act of God's grace allowing believers to avoid the guilt trip gospel by moving towards a spirit of liberality is well documented in Richard Sibbes' book, The Bruised Reed, where Sibbes notes the law of Moses requires perpetual and perfect obedience to it, but gives us no strength, which is a terrible curse to be under. Then comes along Christ, a new covenant, not of works, but of grace and with healing balm for those wounds which Moses had made. So, Christian, the next time you feel the guilt trip gospel coming on and ashamed of your giving or the lack thereof, stop, remember why you were called to follow this man Christ in the first place. Not to be full of guilt and shame about what you can or cannot give, but rather filled with joy as evidenced by the promise that God will lead you to give what you should give, knowing that in the end, God loves a cheerful giver.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed that video. If you'd like, check out these other clips. And be sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button for more videos.